There is a person you have encountered at some point in your life who never tried to dominate the room. They did not speak the loudest. They did not interrupt. They did not perform their confidence for anyone watching. And yet the moment they walked in, something shifted. Conversations adjusted. People became slightly more measured. Attention moved in their direction without them asking for it. Nobody could explain exactly why. They just felt it. That person was operating from something that most people spend their entire lives chasing and never find because they are looking for it in completely the wrong places. It is not charisma. It is not status. It is not physical presence. It is something far more rare and far more powerful. It is silent confidence. And today we are going to break down the exact psychology behind it so that by the end of this video you understand not just what it is but precisely how it is built from the inside out. The first thing you need to understand is the difference between performed confidence and silent confidence, because most of what the world sells as confidence is actually the first thing disguised as the second. Performed confidence is loud. It fills silence aggressively because silence feels threatening to it. It needs external validation to stay alive. It needs the laugh, the approval, the reaction, the acknowledgement. And because it is dependent on those things, it is also incredibly fragile. One dismissive comment, one room that does not respond the way it was supposed to, one moment of being ignored and the whole structure wobbles. You have seen this person. They talk too much. They name drop unnecessarily. They laugh a little too hard at their own observations. They are working very hard and the work is visible, and that visibility is exactly the problem. Silent confidence does none of this. Silent confidence does not need the room to confirm it because it is not sourced from the room in the first place. It is internally generated, self-sustaining, and because it does not depend on external reaction, it cannot be taken away by external circumstances. This is not a small distinction. It is the entire game. Let us talk about the body because silent confidence lives in the body before it lives anywhere else. The research on nonverbal communication is overwhelming in its consistency. Studies from Harvard social psychologist Amy Cuddy and numerous subsequent researchers confirm that body language does not just communicate how we feel to others. It actually feeds back into how we feel about ourselves. The way you hold your body changes your hormonal state. It changes your cortisol levels. It changes your cognitive performance under pressure. And other people's brains are processing your physical signals before they have consciously registered a single word you have said. Silently confident people share a very specific physical vocabulary. They move slowly and deliberately, never rushed, never reactive, as if they trust completely that the world will wait for them. They occupy space without apologizing for it. Their posture is open not in an aggressive way, but in the way of someone who has nothing to hide and nothing to prove. Their hands are still when they are listening. Their eye contact is steady and genuine rather than darting or performatively intense. And perhaps most tellingly, they are comfortable with physical stillness in a way that most people are not. Because most people use movement and fidgeting as nervous energy release. The silently confident person has no nervous energy that needs releasing. They have already handled that internally. Now we need to talk about emotional regulation because this is the invisible engine that powers everything visible about silent confidence. Here is a truth that the loudest, most performative people in any room have in common. They are being run by their emotions. Every reaction, every need to fill silence, every compulsive oversharing, every aggressive dominance behavior is the output of an unregulated emotional state responding to its environment. Silently confident people are not emotionless. That is a critical misunderstanding. They feel everything. The difference is that they have developed what psychologists call a gap between stimulus and response. Something happens and instead of immediately reacting, they pause. They observe their own internal state, and then they choose their response deliberately. This is what Viktor Frankl described as the last human freedom, and what modern neuroscience identifies with the prefrontal cortex's capacity to override the amygdala's fight or flight response. When someone tries to provoke a silently confident person, the expected emotional cascade simply does not arrive on schedule. And that absence of expected reaction is one of the most psychologically powerful things one human being can communicate to another. It says, "I am not controlled by your behavior," which immediately raises the question of who actually holds the power in this interaction. Here is one of the most counterintuitive findings in the psychology of social influence. The people perceived as most powerful and most magnetic in social settings are almost never the ones talking the most. They are the ones listening the most, and not passive listening. Not the kind of listening where you are waiting for your turn to speak. The kind of deep, attentive listening where your entire focus is on the other person and they can feel it. There is a reason this is so rare and so powerful. In a world saturated with people performing their opinions, competing for conversational real estate, and mentally rehearsing their next point while someone else is speaking, genuine full attention has become almost shockingly uncommon. When you give it to someone, they feel it immediately. They feel seen. They feel valued. They become more open, and they associate that feeling with you, even if they cannot articulate why they find you so compelling to be around. Silently confident people talk less not because they have less to say, but because they understand that words spent carelessly are social currency wasted. When they do speak, people lean in, because the silence that preceded it has given the words weight. Every great communicator in history understood this. It is not about how much you say, it is about how much space your silence creates for what you say to land. Let us talk about something that silently confident people do that most people find terrifying. They say no without explanation, and they say it without guilt. This might sound small, but psychologically it is enormous. The inability to say no cleanly is one of the most common and most visible symptoms of low self-worth. Because when you do not believe you have the right to simply decline something, your brain forces you to compensate. You over-explain, you apologize, you soften it with so many qualifications that the no almost disappears inside the cushioning around it. And that entire performance communicates something very specific to every person watching it. It communicates that you do not fully trust your own right to have preferences. Silently confident people have made a fundamental internal decision that their time, their energy, and their attention are genuinely valuable. And that decision shows up in the clean, simple way they navigate requests that do not align with their priorities. They do not need you to understand. They do not need you to agree. They have already done the internal work of deciding what matters to them, and a simple no is just the outward expression of that already settled question. The absence of guilt in that no is what communicates confidence at the deepest level. Now here is the psychological foundation that all of this rests on, and without it, none of the external behaviors are sustainable for long. Silent confidence is ultimately built on one thing: a settled sense of self that does not require external confirmation to remain stable. Psychologists call this internal locus of control, and it is the difference between someone whose emotional state is largely determined by what happens to them and someone whose emotional state is largely determined by their relationship with themselves. Most people are running on what others think of them as a primary source of self-information. When people approve, they feel good. When people criticize or ignore them, they feel destabilized. And this means their confidence is always at the mercy of an unpredictable and often indifferent external world. Silently confident people have done a specific kind of internal work that gradually shifts this source of information inward. They have developed clarity about their own values. They have built a track record of keeping promises to themselves. They have faced enough discomfort and moved through it that they trust their own capacity to handle difficulty. And that self-trust becomes the bedrock beneath everything else. You cannot perform this. You cannot fake it with posture tricks or speaking techniques alone. It has to be built. And it is built the same way every real thing is built, through repeated action over time. So here is what building silent confidence actually looks like in practice, because this cannot stay in the realm of theory. It starts with your relationship to silence itself. Most people are uncomfortable with silence in conversation and rush to fill it. Begin practicing the pause. Let silence exist without immediately rescuing it. You will find that silence does not destroy conversations, it deepens them. Next, begin observing your own reactions before expressing them, not suppressing them, observing them. When something triggers an emotional response and you give yourself even 3 seconds before you respond, that gap is where your power lives. Start honoring your own no, not aggressively, not dramatically, just cleanly. Practice declining small things without elaborate justification, and notice how the world does not end when you do. Build the internal track record by doing what you said you would do. Every kept promise to yourself adds one more brick to the foundation of self-trust that silent confidence is built on. And finally, invest in knowing yourself, your values, your non-negotiables, what you stand for and what you will not tolerate. Because you cannot project clarity about who you are if you have never actually sat down and decided. Silent confidence is not a personality type you are either born with or not. It is a practice. A daily, deliberate choice to become someone whose inner world is so solid and so settled that the outer world never has to wonder whether you know your own worth. You do, and eventually everyone around you will feel it before you ever say a word.